Today I just want to share a story with you guys about a conversation that I recently had with a friend of mine on social media. Through his comments and on his status, he had essentially said that people believe that addictions were a disease, were disrespectful, and were rude to other people who, to people who actually had what could be named as diseases. And in that instance, I found so many different ways to tell him that he was wrong. We had argued back and forth for several days, and honestly, it kind of got really funny. Recently, I recall actually looking through our messages that this friend apologized. And I remember the joy of feeling him apologize to me. I remember him asking me in that moment of apologizing, was he being insensitive? And I felt so excited to tell him, yes. You see, I had so many people in my family who actually were facing addictions. I myself, at one point, I felt like I was facing addiction. But I realized that instead of just putting him in his place and finding pleasure in doing that, I had to be in his place. I had to see things from his perspective. So in my reflection of that situation, I found that I was like taken back to our freshman year, right here at Temple University. We did what many freshmen would do at the time when we were given an ounce of freedom. We party and we drink endlessly. During our parties and our celebrations, this friend would actually come from across campus and he would hang out with my roommates and me. But eventually, him coming across campus and hanging with my friends turned into him staying in my dorm room. And as I'm sure many of you guys here today are, or once were, Temple students, you know room and board isn't cheap. But in him staying in my dorm, he'd eventually start staying under my roommate's bed. And none of us took the time to really think that he might actually be going through something, or facing any problems. Fast forward to the end of that school year, we realized that he'd no longer be attending Temple University. He now had to attend Alcoholics Anonymous. And in that moment, I realized that I needed to connect that conversation that I had with him on social media and the situation where he was in freshman year. And I realized that what had started as an alcohol addiction had soon leveled up to an opioid addiction. And he had posted his status as a means of denying that he ever even had a problem to begin with. And in that moment, I realized that I had to not only consider his perspective, but I now had to take into consideration you guys as well. What if everything you thought about the medical marijuana industry was all wrong? Now I know you guys might be a little confused. I just went from talking about an alcohol addiction and an opioid addiction to now talking about the medical marijuana industry. And believe me, I'm a little bit confused myself when I first said it. But allow me some time to actually explain. See, recently, I graduated from here at Temple University for the second time with my master's degree in forensic chemistry. And with this professional science master's degree in forensic chemistry, I found that so many people would ask me questions like, are you talking about CSI or even The Flash? And immediately I found so many different ways to tell them they were wrong. But I realized that forensic chemistry actually equipped me with the knowledge to actually test things from an analytical standpoint, and test for quality and test for quantity, and apply those things to legal circumstances. But I was a little bit conflicted. How was I studying to have a master's degree in something that I might potentially assist in arresting people who look just like me for something like simple possession of cannabis? Ironically, during that same time period, I also worked in the medical marijuana industry as a purification chemist. And immediately, I felt a little bit conflicted again. Like, hey, people that look just like you might have once been locked up for this to this day. But I realized that, in feeling these type of feelings and learning the things I learned, that I developed a sense of duality in which I realized that there are so many different misconceptions that the medical marijuana industry kind of portrayed. And honestly, our government kind of like feeds us those misconceptions, and they feed it through fear. So I just want to share a couple of images. I know many of you guys might have heard about marijuana being the gateway drug, and honestly, I laugh at that thought every single time. A simple plant, standing at the door or the gate, opening the door for his buddy, the other drugs. You guys might have also seen or heard about this video.
Okay, last time. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
If I'm like any of you guys, you probably got hungry after watching that video. And truthfully, I just want bacon, egg, and cheese right now. But I find that it's these videos and it's these images and it's this propaganda that's spread that kind of instills so much fear into people. And we have to find ways to like reduce that stigma that's placed on so many people in our lives. So I just want to like just take a step and allow you guys to see where many of these misconceptions started from. The Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 essentially was the start of many of these fears being started. At the time, marijuana was known as cannabis sativa indica or ruderalis, which is the scientific name for what marijuana eventually turned out to be. However, the government did one interesting thing. They started changing the name of this cannabis thing to marijuana, a name that wasn't really known for people for a while. They changed it to ganja. And because people didn't know about these names, they started being fearful, as they should when this new thing comes into play. This Marijuana Tax Act basically made people pay a tax for any possession or transfer of cannabis at the time. The interesting thing we see at that time also is that it was the start of what you would know as incarceration for people who weren't able to actually have these taxes paid. Fast forward to 1951 with the Boggs Act, we see that mandatory minimum sentences and penalties were being placed for people who consumed marijuana or possessed marijuana. But more and more we see that people began to be arrested. And that was kind of evident from seeing that literally 2 months after this thing went into place, 500 people got arrested. Currently, what we have in place is what some of you guys might know as the Controlled Substances Act, in which various drugs are placed into different schedules according to their potential for abuse, their potential for people to be addicted, or whether or not there's any medical uses for it. Currently, cannabis and many of its cannabinoids or chemicals that are found in this plant are placed in the Schedule 1. Interestingly enough, as we see, cannabis and some of the other drugs in Schedule 1 were once used for medical purposes. But more and more with this Controlled Substances Act, we see that it provided a baseline for people to actually be penalized and become arrested, instead of actually getting the help that they needed. So today I don't really want to bore you with any history. That's honestly not my goal at all, because history was probably one of my least favorite subjects in school. But I do believe that history allows us to see the future and where things are trending. And I think that's evident in seeing that currently 10 states plus Washington, D.C. have legalized marijuana on a recreational level. 33 states has legalized medical marijuana for various purposes for patients. 22 states plus Washington, D.C. has now decriminalized marijuana. Our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the south, Canada and Mexico, have both completely legalized marijuana. So I believe that one day things will trend upward, and things will get better. And one day there may be legalization on a wide scale in our country. But I don't believe that we should necessarily just assume that things will get better without actually being educated on why things are better, what some of the misconceptions there currently are. So I just want to give a couple of facts about what marijuana is and is not. Medical marijuana, or marijuana in general, is not the solution to all your problems as pop culture wants you to believe. You can't just rub it on your skin and magically everything just goes away. You still have to go to a doctor, you still have to get help, and you still have to get treated. The medical marijuana industry is not just a bunch of pothead stoners working over your weed all day. In fact, the medical marijuana industry is actually a highly regulated industry. You have to actually follow state guidelines and state rules. The medical marijuana industry also is an industry that has provided so many opportunities for many people who look just like me, who might not have had a job one day because of something that they did or did not do. And those are some of the things that I actually saw and I actually appreciated from my time being in the medical marijuana industry. The medical marijuana industry also is not just limited to marijuana, the plant. There's so many different ways and so many beneficial ways that people could actually consume cannabis. And many of these ways are highly beneficial and can help in just miraculous ways that I've just been so excited to see from patients actually coming in and showing that, hey, I remember where I was before this, and I know where I'm going, and I know how I feel now. You see, there are currently topicals, there are lozenges, there are concentrates. Some of you guys might have heard about edibles or vape pens. Each of these things, minus what you hear about in pop culture, is a means for people to actually consume this product and actually get the healing that they need. And it's a way that people can actually dose their medication properly. One last fact that I found about the medical marijuana industry is that all weed is not created equally. You see, there are so many different cannabinoids and strains and things that people can actually consume. And I just mentioned cannabinoids, and cannabinoids are essentially chemicals that are found in the plant that each have specific purposes and can each actually help treat various different ailments and things like that of that nature. Interestingly enough, we see that THC is the one that our government likes to demonize the most. And honestly, it's the thing that helps the most. Oftentimes we'll believe that THC causes psychosis, makes people act like monsters, and the reality is that was never the case. From seeing so many people come in, it was told that, hey, I can actually focus off this thing. I actually feel way better. I feel good. I believe that we actually really need this thing. Our bodies want this thing, our bodies crave this thing, and that's kind of evidencing that we have an endocannabinoid system built into our bodies currently, in which we also produce our own cannabinoids, or endocannabinoids, which often make us feel like we have this runner's high, and make us feel like, happy. So more and more, we have these endocannabinoid system and these receptors that will bind and make us want this thing even more. And it'll make us feel good once it sends these signals to our brains and to our bodies. I believe that if we have this thing naturally in our bodies, and our bodies naturally produce these things, maybe it's not that bad of an idea that it should be legalized. Before I leave you guys today, I just want to leave you with the gift. I want to leave you with the gift of the current qualifying conditions here in Pennsylvania. Currently, there are so many different things up here, no condition greater than the other. But I do want to share and really take the time to appreciate two things that are up here: PTSD and addiction. These are things that we currently see right here in our local Philadelphia community that people are actually struggling with. But oftentimes, we also see that these people are trying to treat and they're trying to heal themselves, but at the same time, getting arrested for trying to go about it without legal means. I share this with you guys today as a means of actually researching and learning and understanding that, hey, maybe this thing can help me or can help somebody else. So I encourage you to share this resource with somebody else. Go seek out a doctor, go seek out a medical marijuana card, and spread this resource to somebody that might not know about it at all. I believe that if my friend during my freshman year would have known about medical marijuana or medical marijuana was available to him, things would be way different for him today. We can't assume progress is permanent. And we must continue to keep fighting and keep pushing. And maybe one day more people can get the help that they actually need and that they actually deserve.